I guess my superpower is my drive. But if I can kind of give you a little bit of that in a cup of coffee, you can apply that to your day-to-day life.
We love the San Gabriel Valley. There are some amazing people and businesses here, and we think they deserve the spotlight. Welcome to the SGV Master Key Podcast. We'll have on the people that make the SGV great. We'll find out what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their history, and we're going to have fun doing it. This is the SGV Master Key Podcast. And now your hosts, Scott Warmoth and Russell Mano.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and we're excited to bring you this guest today. In the intro, you heard the connection to coffee, and I'm a fan of coffee. I love coffee. I have coffee every day. And Scott, how much coffee do you have?
I have never in my life drank a cup of coffee. I've tried a few times. It's funny. I'm from Seattle. That's where, it's known for coffee.
Sure.
But my family just never drank coffee when I was growing up. But what I do love, I love the smell of coffee. I love the smell. But I just try as I might, I cannot drink it.
I think that sort of speaks to your non-addiction to caffeine, though, because you don't have any drinks with caffeine, right?
No, I don't. And right, I drink milk and water. That's about it.
So, most people, I guess, they're addicted to the caffeine or to the cream and sugar or both, some combination
Does
of
root
both.
beer have caffeine?
I'm not sure.
Because that's the one thing I will drink that other than milk and water.
Well, our guest today has a connection to coffee, and I remember when I met him, because of my love for coffee and engaging people in conversation about it, it's sort of easy to tell whether or not they one, have a passion for it, and two, if they know it. And I would say for certain, our guest today has both of those things. His name is Frank Schipani, and he's the owner and entrepreneur of Three Hats Coffee. Frank, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, Frank, like I said, I met you at the Monrovia Farmers Market where you were selling your coffee, and I was asking you about your coffee, and very quickly I could tell that you knew your stuff, right? How did your coffee journey begin?
Sure. I think that really stems back to New York City in 2020. Prior to, I had a business. I was a property manager in the city, and with COVID happening, that kind of fell by the wayside, needless to say. And I was pretty high strung out because I went from having a fairly good salary to it being pretty hard. And I don't do any like recreational stuff, drinking or smoking of the nature, but I picked up coffee as a coping mechanism to try to figure out what I wanted to do. And I realized rather quickly that it was a recession-proof commodity that even if poorly done, it was still being widely sold. So based on what I was doing with my previous business, I decided that I was going to give it the same, I was going to lend myself to coffee, but give it the same quality that I did with my previous business. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole of learning how to roast and source coffee, high-quality coffees, I should say, and then bring it to market. So I was set to move to Southern California in 2021, but since everything was kind of falling apart in New York, we kind of expedited that, and I just got started. Yeah.
Why were you set to move here?
My wife and I, we wanted to come out to Southern California pre-COVID, but we just wanted to give our children a little more space and have them a little better access to just a little more greenery than New York City offered. So I just think the timing kind of played itself well, and we took the opportunity and we made the transition.
So your story is a little bit different from most of the guests here. I would say they're either, born, lived here for a very long time.
Yeah, for sure.
So your choice to come to this, well, let's say California, was because of a change for your kids and your family. And how did you end up choosing San Gabriel Valley for your business?
Sure. Actually, when I go to canvas farmers markets, I'm always just looking for places where I feel there's a demand for the product that I sell. And, there's just a healthy marriage between the community and my product. And when I went to Monrovia and Duarte in particular, I just felt that there was a screaming necessity for specialty grade coffee. And so I just wanted to be a part and contribute to that fabric of society, and it's worked out incredibly well thus far.
So there must be a lot of education that you do with the public, right? Because most people are thinking Starbucks, coffee bean, and you're laughing now, but what's the difference there?
Yeah, so I come across a wide array of people who have experience with coffee. To some, coffee is coffee, and it doesn't matter where you get it or what country it comes from or any of the characteristics that it has. And then I also get people who are a little more understanding and sophisticated with specialty grade coffee. So I have to be able to pivot and understand where my customer is in their coffee journey and be able to elaborate the benefits of having a higher tier premium coffee as their daily cup of joe. So, over 2 years of experience doing it in a wide array of different markets, I've kind of gotten pretty good at knowing who the customer is and understanding their experiences and then accommodating them accordingly.
So what is your product? How many different varieties do you sell, or is it one variety?
Sure.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. As a coffee roaster, our journey kind of starts out at the beginning of the year when we are sourcing and cupping different cups of coffees, different coffees from all over the world. And cupping means we're just sampling them. We're roasting them to a very set grade, like a very uniform grade, roughly a very light medium roast, and then we're tasting them. We're looking for the characteristics of that bean, whether they're too tart or acidic or bitter or what pretty much what features they have. And then from there, we make a decision on if we're going to go long on that coffee, meaning we're going to buy it for the year. So we source, at Three Hats, we source over, I think, 9 different coffees from different farms. We roast them to different profiles, light, medium, and dark. And then we offer them to the market based on what their demands are, their demands and requests. Yeah.
And when you say you source them, you're buying 100-pound of green beans.
I wish they were 100 pounds. It's roughly about between 60 to 69 kilos. So that translates to about 132 pounds to 154, give or take. And so it's not just one bag. It will be, 10 bags per roast. So you're looking at 90 bags for the year. And this is only year 2. I'm expecting it only to grow more as time goes on.
So you buy the beans and you roast them. And I know from some of our previous shows where we've talked coffee, there is a difference in the way you roast, right? And what light, medium, and dark means.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah. I'll let Frank explain that.
For sure. So when you're generally looking to roast on a lighter or a medium roast, what you're really trying to do is accentuate the fruit-forward notes that bean probably has. So, for example, a region like, or a country like Ethiopia tends to harvest a very bright, fruit-forward cup of coffee with high acidities, low bitterness, and you want to roast it lighter so that you can bring that out of the coffee bean. Whereas if you're roasting it a little darker, you're looking to kind of mute the acidities, but bring out a little bit more of either a chocolate or a bitterness to the coffee bean. So, a little secret for the big box stores. They'll tend to get what we call C-grade beans. Those are commercial grade coffee beans, and then they'll roast them really dark because if you roast them at a light or a medium level, they have defects. They'll taste a little funny. So they'll roast them dark, and then they'll add creams and sugars, and they'll make, almost like desserts out of them. And that's what you'll see move at scale, and that's what coffee is. But high-tier coffee if it, when it's worth its grain of salt, you don't need to add any sugars, any creamers, any fillers to them. They hold up well as a standalone product. So that's what you're getting in specialty grade. Now, you can go lighter or you could go darker for that, just depending on what your preference is. But good quality coffee doesn't need anything extra for it to be a consumable product.
So what you roast would be pretty pure in terms of the consumer would not want it with cream or sugar or any other things added to it. Is that right? I mean, they're just drinking it pure.
For sure. I mean, if the customer has a preference towards adding a creamer or sugar to it, they most certainly can. And they will just get a better end result than what they would have if their base foundation is a bag of coffee that's been sitting on the shelf for 6-7 months in their local grocery store.
So how many different varieties do you offer?
I have 9 single origins, which means I don't blend them with any other beans, and then I have 1 blend, which is tailored for espresso. So all in all, about 10 different kinds of coffee I offer on a weekly basis.
And these are bags, or how are they sold?
That's right. So there are 10 different bags depending on the customer's size preference. We carry 12-ounce bags, 1 kilo bags, and 5-pound bags.
So if I want a cup of coffee, I don't go to you. If I want to buy a bag that I would take home and brew myself, that's where I would go to you.
For sure. So if you're looking for a cup, you'd have to find me at a farmer's market local to you, and I do have beverages available. But in terms of a physical brick and mortar, at this moment, that's not our primary focus.
Oh, okay. So at a farmer's market, you sell cups. Is that just to introduce the coffee? Your main product would be the bags.
Most certainly. Yeah. For me, when starting this business, I felt that the farmers markets achieved several objectives. First, it enabled me to build community in a new state that I had very, no connection towards. I had my brother and sister-in-law who live here, but outside of that, I had no immediate community. So it allowed me to meet people. And then in addition to that, it allowed me to have those local communities try my product in a very non-salesy type of way, if that kind of makes sense. And they can have their own opinion on what I was bringing to the marketplace, and they can figure out if they wanted to introduce that into their pantry or not. And over the last 2 years, I feel 10 different markets all throughout Southern California. I think the proof is in the pudding. People have a lot of residual customers, and it lent itself incredibly well for me to get my company off the ground.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
There's so many different directions we can take this conversation, and what I want the listener to know, and your customers and potential customers to know is your story. And there's something about your drive and your ability to pivot that I want to get into, because
Sure.
I think that's the remarkable part, right? Like you said that COVID, you had to start over.
Yeah, for sure.
And you also mentioned something about a $5,000 loan and building this roaster out of some
Sure.
heat gun. And maybe let's start with the name of your company. So
For
it's Three Hats Coffee Company.
That's right.
What's the background behind that?
For sure. So before I even left New York City to come to California, I knew I wanted to start a coffee roastery business. I didn't have any experience in food and beverage as a whole, never, let alone coffee. And as I was making my way over, I wanted to make sure that I had a name that was very prevalent to how I was starting out and my motivation for doing it. So Three Hats essentially means one person wearing all the hats to make their thing go. Oh, yeah. And when you're starting something and everything is relying on yourself, you need to be able to wear multiple hats. So in my case, I roast my coffee, I was sourcing, I was selling, I was doing my marketing, my online fulfillment, my local deliveries, everything. And for my customers, I wanted to kind of just translate that and say, hey, look, if there's nothing really special about me, right? Like I don't I guess my superpower is my drive. But if I can kind of give you a little bit of that in a cup of coffee, you can apply that to your day-to-day life. And I think people who kind of understand what it's like to either be an entrepreneur or wear multiple hats, it resonated with them on a very deep, profound level. And so, yeah, they gave me a shot, and then they actually tasted my product, and they said, wow, this kid actually knows what he's doing. He's pretty good at what he does. And so it kind of helped me to get my foot in this industry. Yeah.
Can you talk about this first roaster that you described to me when we first met?
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned that I started on a $5,000 loan, and that's a little misconstrued. I said to myself that I wasn't certain that coffee was going to be in demand the way that I was offering it. So I was willing to lose $5,000 of my own money. I didn't take a loan out. So I fronted that money, and to start a business in 2020, in addition to acclimating to a brand new life in general, it was very low risk, and that's what I was willing to part ways with in the event that it didn't work out. So everything I did when I first started was incredibly cash lean. So I found someone on Instagram. He was a home roaster from Australia who he was using a bread maker. He modified a bread maker and bought a heat gun from, I guess, his local department store. He put the heat gun on top, and he was creating these very even, beautiful roasts of coffee. And I was immediately enamored by this concept. And so I reached out to him and I said, how are you doing this? And he was friendly enough to kind of share his process. And so I immediately began implementing this in my roasting journey. And it was fantastic that I was able to manufacture a product as evenly and as high quality as what you would use in a commercial grade roaster. But my weakness was that I can only do 1 pound per 15 minutes. When you have to sell, let's say, 70 bags of coffee, you can just do the time and realize that it's not sustainable. But for the beta test that was my business, it was a fantastic tool. And all those first bags of coffee that were sold in my local markets, that's how they were made. And when people began to realize and say, wow, this is an amazing cup of coffee, I knew I had something on my hands. And I knew that it gave me the confidence in myself and in my ability to just keep moving the ball down the field. And I knew that I can scale. Yeah.
So roasting coffee is about even heat and movement, is that correct?
That's right. So you want to start at a certain charge temperature, depending on the bean's weight, density, how it absorbs water, right? Or how it actually loses water. And from there, you're going to try to create your own recipe with it. And some beans lean themselves better to being lighter roasts, and some beans tend to be better as a medium or a dark roast. So as a roaster, my job is to identify the region and the farm and see what kind of holds up well. So this is a bit of a play and experimentation at the beginning, but then once you got it, it's like riding a bike, and you're following your roadmap for that bean.
Yeah, it's very much an art and a craft, right? Like you can't take a bean from the same batch and hit a button and say, okay, this is the X amount of time. It's the next time you roast it is different. The next time you roast it is different, right?
For sure. With inconsistency will breed unhappy customers, because they're coming to you for that experience, that flavor note that they had for that first bag of coffee. So if it starts off as X but changes to Y, they're going to say, hey, what happened? So my job is to make sure that the experience they get is constant. And that translates itself from a business to consumer, direct to consumer, or to wholesale partners as well. Wholesale especially, because they're dialing in their espresso machines, they're formulating their recipes and getting their baristas ready to go. And they're banking that you're going to give them a product that is very, very consistent so that they can deliver the same consistency to their customers.
That must be challenging with the perishable product, right? Because it's also changing.
Yeah, for sure. What people, I think, that are not in the coffee industry, what they don't realize is that coffee is an agricultural product. So there is a bit of discovery in that as well. And we don't want to go, as coffee roasters, we don't want to go so long, meaning like we don't want to buy so much crop that we cannot roast it and get it to market within a fixed period of time. So for example, anything that's in my facility, it's not sitting there for less than 6 months, because we're under the impression that anything past that, it's going to start to wane in terms of its flavor profile and proficiency. So if we're a premium grade coffee company, we don't want it to sit longer than that.
So you described it as a rabbit hole that you went down studying all of this. And I think I remember hearing before the show that you had never had coffee, you never drank coffee until when?
Yeah, yeah. I've had coffee before, but it wasn't a regular daily habit of mine. And I think this kind of stems with COVID in particular. It was a coping mechanism for me while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with myself next. I had tasted entrepreneurialism, and I had promised myself that I was going to do everything in my power to stay in that entrepreneurial driver's seat before kind of going back and I guess finding a traditional 9-to-5. So as I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, coffee was what I was consuming to think about it. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So you're sitting in your tiny little apartment at 109th and Broadway, right?
For sure, yeah.
And you start drinking coffee?
That's right.
And then a light goes off in your brain. Maybe you can start roasting and selling coffee?
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of how I'm hardwired. I said to myself, this coffee I'm drinking isn't very good. Even though I wasn't a coffee drinker, I was able to identify that almost immediately. Wow, lots of sugar, lots of creamer needs to be added to this just for it to be bearable.
Yeah.
And so as I'm sitting in that 950 square foot apartment where if I stick my elbows out, it was a railroad apartment, so you had a long a walkway and then room. Yeah. So as I'm sitting on my sofa, pondering about what I wanted to do, I said, okay, wow, look at this commodity. It's not even good, but it's being moved at scale, whether it be because of branding, lack of consumer education and understanding of how good this product could be. So I said, okay, what happens if I can find something better than what is being served here in these big box stores, and then bring it to market fresh, build community, and offer it? Is that possible? And I wasn't immediately sure, so I began doing what I hope all people my age do, which is Google and YouTube it. And I began finding that other people were, in fact, doing this in one distribution means or another, whether they were working with partners in cafes or, within their own local communities. So I said, I'm going to Southern California relatively soon. What is a very good distribution arm that I can work in that is not very capital intensive, but it allows me to get my product to market relatively quickly and do what I need to do in order to grow my business? And so I kind of just lucked out here and found that farmers markets were readily available in almost every city. And so I think I'm pretty approachable as a salesperson and as an individual. And it lent myself really well to my personality. And so kind of everything just fell into place from there.
When was your first sale and where was it?
For sure. So I didn't really know how the business end of farmers markets worked. In my own naivete, I thought each market manager only operated one market. But I learned rather quickly that one manager would potentially oversee several. Let's say if they were a smaller market company, maybe 3 to 4, and if they were big, they were overseeing 5+. My first sale came most likely in Placentia, because that was the first farmers market I joined, and that's only because they were the first one that responded to my requests to jump into their market. What was it, in June of 2020? And I was sending emails and physically visiting, and Placentia was the first one that gave me a spot and an opportunity. And then her name is Marianne, and she's a fantastic person. She said, "Oh, by the way, do you want to do Irvine Great Park?" And I just happened to move to Irvine. That's where I live still. And I said, "Oh, you run that one too?" She goes, "Yeah." So I said, "Absolutely." So from Placentia and Irvine, that's how I kind of started, and that's how I grew my confidence, and that's how I was building a little bit of cash flow for 3 hats. And then from 2 it went to 4, and then from 4 it went to 6, and from 6 now it's currently 10. So in 2 short years, I was able to scale that.
Does that mean every day you're at a farmer's market or a market?
Currently, our schedule is in markets is Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're either doubling or tripling up depending on the day. Yeah. And
I'm sorry. And what days are you? You're in Duarte and Monrovia.
Yeah.
What days are those?
Duarte is on Wednesdays in the afternoon to early evening from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And Monrovia is on Friday evenings from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Yeah.
Wait, Duarte, did you say it's tonight?
That's right.
How is that compared to Monrovia?
Well, Duarte is a brand new market. It has been operating for, I want to say, about 6 weeks.
Oh, that's why I've never heard of it.
Yes, of course. So it's still trying to get its footing.
Where is Duarte?
Adjacent to Monrovia, Bradbury, north of the 210.
Okay, it's over there. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's relatively close. I mean, Monrovia Farmers Market is like a family event, right? Like you sort of go there on a Friday night, listen to music,
Sure.
Eat dinner there, like walk around, right?
That's right. And Monrovia in particular is, it has its own special charm that I haven't found in any other farmers market that I've participated in. The bands, the sheer amount of vendors that they have, the variety, it's really awesome. And it has this very lively atmosphere that it's really unique. And if you haven't been there, you should go with your family because you're most likely going to find something that you like, an artisan or a vendor that does something really unique and at a high quality.
That's a nice stretch of stores and shops there, restaurants.
For sure.
Yeah. Frank, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Oh, sure. I guess I brought with me my signature fedora hat.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to hold it, I'd be happy to let you. I don't know how that procedure works. But my trademark for my company, and it's my logo, it's kind of like my uniform, is my fedora hats. And I ironically have 3 of them. So yeah, when you see me at a market, you'll most likely see me.
So where did you buy this one?
Yeah, all of my fedoras are from I guess they're a small company. They're called Gorin Brothers, and they make these really nice retro fedora hats, and I think they have a lot of personality, and it's just kind of my signature. Yeah, if I don't wear the hat to the market, my customers will say, "I didn't even recognize you," or "Who are you? Are you new here?" I'm like, "No, it's me. It's Frank."
Yeah, it's kind of a signature, like early 20th century look.
Yeah,
early to mid 20th century.
For sure. Yeah.
You ever see like at baseball games, everybody was wearing a hat, back in the 30s, 40s,
That's
50s.
right. Rather than wearing the jerseys of their favorite sports teams, every male was in a suit with a tie and a top hat of some sort.
Yeah.
Different time. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it definitely ties into your company name and also the logo. So for people who can't see it right now, can you describe your logo? Yeah,
sure. So my logo is a fedora hat, and it has 3 Hats Coffee Company. Is pretty straightforward font with gold and black as I guess our logo's colors. I think there's just something a little classy and timeless to those colors, and I kind of wanted to have a little bit of an old school appeal, because I think the way with which I started this company is a little old school. It's definitely not, hey, I have this idea, let's get some private equity to invest hundreds or millions of dollars into it, and let's kind of focus about scaling at large. It's very grassroots, it's very organic. I think it's a little gritty, and it's tenacious. And I think that, all of those characters, I wanted them to resonate in the logo, in the branding, and in the product. Yeah.
Awesome.
And you allowed yourself $5,000.
That's it. Yeah.
And you didn't eat it all up, it sounds like.
Well, I invested it all into the business, and that $5,000 yielded more money, which I reinvested back in, and I just continually tried to play financial jiu-jitsu where I was cash flowing, but also covering my life and my family expenses. And therefore, even still to this day, I run very cash flow lean, because the vision and the dream that I have for Three Hats is really big. And so in order to get there, everything kind of needs to be put back into it for that, big goal to be realized.
What is the big dream?
Yeah. Well, the big dream, I guess we could say the 5-year plan, would be to have well over 30 to 40 wholesale accounts operating throughout Southern California, 50 plus farmers markets per week, have a way bigger online presence that we can invest into, and just make this a really high quality but bigger coffee roastery. Yeah.
And is that just a matter of putting in the time and you'll reach it?
Yeah, I think it comes down to brand awareness, allowing people to try our coffee, and then getting them to realize the difference for that certain demographic. The demographic that's a little more sophisticated with their understanding of specialty grade coffee, that's just letting them try our product. I'm very confident in what we bring to market, and I think it's unique enough, and it has a space where people that already know, have gone down the rabbit hole along with us, they will like it and give us a try. Yeah.
So I've gone to many farmers markets. I've spoken to many people who sell coffee. I see them often, and I'll speak to them for a little bit, and I sort of already know what their coffee is going to taste like when I speak to them, And I think we were talking for a while before I even tried your coffee.
Sure.
Maybe 10 minutes or so, and I was like, okay, I bet you this coffee is going to be good. And at first we were talking about the differences between roasters and their interpretation of light and medium and whatnot.
Sure. And
I can say for certain, I really enjoyed your coffee. There's definitely a difference in the consumer knowledge of coffee. How do you go from like a Folgers Crystals coffee drinker to your product?
Yeah. And here's where I'm going to say a lack of experience played a vital role. When you grow up in an industry per se, right? I feel there's a tendency to lose your creative edge or your imagination. When I came into coffee, I was extremely green. And all I could really go off of was what I interpreted to be unique or diverse, and compare it against something that I felt was kind of standard or run-of-the-mill. So as I started my coffee journey, it was pretty, I was drinking the big box stuff, and I just could say, this can't be what all coffee is about. And so as I began to source and meet different people who had a little bit more experience in the coffee industry, and they set tables out and they said, Frank, we think you should try these coffees. And now we begin to sample and taste and taste and taste. I was going into every coffee, every experience, every cup with an almost childlike imagination interpretation for what coffee can be. And so I allowed my creativity and my imagination to really run wild. And I still try to have that edge when I do things. I don't want to do something with Three Hats just because a bigger specialty coffee company does it. Just because they've proven that it works for them doesn't mean that it's going to work for me. So I just try to continue to reinvent the wheel and do what I think would work for my clientele and my demographic, while also maintaining to the standard of bringing a very high quality premium product to market.
See, well, I'm fascinated with your journey, and I want to know more of like where you want to take it, the things that you're challenged with in, attending so many farmers markets and meeting customer demand. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
At Wormuth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Frank. Frank, well, during the break, we were talking about Scott having coffee, and he thought maybe the time when he was tired he would need it. That brings up a thought where I see so many people drinking what they believe is highly caffeinated coffee, but it's not. And it's like this placebo effect where they're just tricking themselves in believing that they're getting some sort of buzz. And I know that they're not, because those beans their caffeine is like way low. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. One of the common misconceptions that people have about coffee is the darker that it's roasted, the stronger and the more caffeine is in that coffee. And it's actually the reverse. The lighter that it's roasted, the more caffeine stays in the bean, and the more caffeinated you will in turn get by it. Really what they're experiencing when they're, and I don't want to, target any big box store out, but what they're really getting from, like, a place that you could drive through and get your coffee, one of those types of places you see out on every block, they're getting a lot of sugar, they're getting a lot of additives, and that's the primary stimulus that they're getting with a little bit of coffee, inside.
I've also heard that one of those places add chicory root to their coffee. Have you heard that? I haven't, but nothing. I wouldn't put it past them to put different additives and very outside variables of coffee into their beverages. Sure. Well, I guess we sort of glazed over your past, but what are the challenges that you've had to overcome, either to in your business now or in life, that has given you this drive? Because I can definitely see it. There's something there that I would say many people don't have. But what are some of the things that help shape that for you?
Yeah. Well, I think when you want to go ahead and achieve something, and that's anything, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or you want to be a doctor or have a great family life, it's very important to have a clearly defined objective with what you're trying to achieve. So when I structure anything in my life, business, personal, I like to create what I call pyramids. And at the top of the pyramid is the overarching goal that I want to achieve, right? That's what I'm trying to achieve at the finish line. And then I try to roll back and say, okay, well, at the foundation of the pyramid, what do I have to do on the day-to-day? What does my day-to-day look like in order to get to that top? And so I begin to prioritize all those little things that, if done correctly and with a little bit of luck, they compound, and then you get the desired effect. So if let's just say you want to be an entrepreneur and you want to hit certain goals and numbers and the like, if you only do that sometimes, well, your why isn't that strong. And if you come to the end result, you're lowering the probability of it. But if your why is incredibly strong and you're just going at it relentlessly, the probability and the odds of you getting that desired result that you're looking for increase dramatically. So I just say to anyone who wants to do something, set the goal, run at it consistently, relentlessly. When you reach your mistake, when you have roadblocks or mistakes that come up, analyze them, decide why they didn't work, pivot, and keep going. Don't let the obstacle, the roadblock, be the fall of or the thing that stops you from going to where you want to go.
Well, you're pretty cerebral.
Very much.
How did you go to school to learn this, or?
I have fantastic role models. they don't know that they're my role models, and a lot of them are actually long past. But I am a student of history, and I look at people from yesteryear and in awe and amazement for the things that they were able to accomplish.
Who are some of those?
Yeah, sure. My first is Alexander the Great. And if you know anything about history, he was a world conqueror. And I know, in today's standard society, we look down upon those types of people. And sure, we could say like the end result was bad, but the drive and the intensity and the charisma of this man, the magnetism of him to lead people to a goal, a desired goal that he wanted to achieve. I am utterly fascinated by that. And so I studied Alexander relentlessly because I want to be able to have those skills, not to conquer other people, but to conquer myself and the goals that I set forth. And when I look back at an individual like that in particular, and I say, yes, I'm starting a company, and I compare what he did to what I'm doing, it's laughable what I'm trying to do right now. Because with the amount of technology we have at our disposal, with everything we have in modern society, it's almost foolproof to fail. And I'm not saying that you can't fail. Of course you can. But the probability of you failing really lives and dies here.
Wow, that's fascinating.
So he's
what's a good biography of Alexander the Great?
Oh yeah, sure. If you really want to go down that rabbit hole, Peter Green, Alexander of Macedon. I forget the dates of his life. I think it was like 323 BC to 360. Is fascinating. It's really in depth. It's an easy read, but it'll give you enough detail to kind of give you a crystal clear picture of who this individual was.
And then who are some others?
Oh yeah, sure. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. If you really want to read about, I want to say the insignificance, but also in that insignificance of life, what you should be doing with your day-to-day, read the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, and you will undoubtedly be a better person at the end of that book from when you began. Earl Nightingale is another one, a motivational speaker from the 1950s and 60s.
Right.
I was actually listening to him on the drive over. Whenever I need to get fired up, everything is for free on Spotify, YouTube. You could just listen to all this wealth of knowledge. Tom Bilyeu, Jim Quick, Gary Vee. These are all
I don't know those names.
Yeah. So
are they contemporary?
Yeah, okay. Motivational speaker.
I don't know anybody contemporary. Alexander the Great is kind of like even he's too contemporary. Anyway.
For sure.
Yeah. How about some other names from the 1800s?
From the 1800s, well, that phase of history for me is a little
1700. Okay. How about during the Renaissance?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, they were essentially learning or they were rediscovering a lot of the principles that were learned in the ancient world because the text and the documents were being preserved.
They were hidden.
Yeah. So they were rediscovering a lot of these things: art, philosophy, culture, science.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like picking up this wealth of knowledge and then, seeing how far they could take it within the confines of a very religious and lack of social mobility society.
So you focused on history. Was literature important to you, or was it mostly these historical figures that would you read Dostoevsky or Tolstoy, or was it the historical figures that you were more interested in?
I was just because a university education, required me to be aware of, the literary titans of the world. I am aware of them, but to say that I'm a master of it or implemented it in my day-to-day, not particularly. With a very finite amount of time and knowing what I want to be, I try to find people who achieved really monumental things. And then I wanted to understand and discover how they did it and what made them tick in order to do it. And then begin to implement those into myself so that I can maximize my probability of reaching and doing great things with my life.
Who would be the most notable or significant person or persons of the last 100 years to you?
Probably Dale Carnegie and Earl Nightingale. Yeah. If you don't want to read history, but you want to like a self-help book that can really help you, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think still to this day holds the test of time.
Right.
And it should be a prerequisite, mandatory piece of reading for anyone in any age group. I actually have my 10-year-old daughter reading it now because I want to make sure that she has all the tools that I had to discover later.
Well, they're motivational, but they're disciplinary as well.
Yeah.
And that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I can see, between back and forth, both of you. Can you see that Scott's excited about
Most certainly
the topic? Yeah. Well, we're going to move on to a different part of the show. We're exploring some of your other interests, and particularly about the San Gabriel Valley. But before we started the show, we sort of talked about mutual interest or liking to the San Gabriel Mountains, and it's sort of this backdrop, and certainly of the Monrovia Farmers Market, and I don't know where the Doherty one is, but as you're walking, north on Myrtle, and you just look up, and there's these beautiful mountains in the background. Have you had a chance to hike any of them, or do you just see them from a distance?
From a hiking standpoint, not yet. It is definitely on the to-do list when I can free up a little time to do it. But I do get the luxury, I feel a little spoiled, that when I am in Duarte or Monrovia markets, that's my backdrop.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Have you had a chance to see it after there's snow on the more eastern mountains?
Not yet. Not yet.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not often, and it doesn't last very long, I guess. But
that's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. The winter, view of the mountains is so much more impressive, I think, and majestic. But yeah, they're just beautiful, and to know that they're just so approachable.
For sure.
You just would walk a few more blocks and they're right there. You're in the mountains.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if you have the opportunity to utilize them, you most certainly should, because they're right in the backyard.
Yeah. In a geography class, I learned that the San Gabriel mountain range is actually the steepest immediate incline in the world.
Wow.
So where we go from, I think it's 300 feet above sea level at the base, and then it just shoots up to 6,000 or 6,100, I think. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So that very sharp, increase in elevation is something unique to the San Gabriel Mountains. But we're going to get into some of your other favorite or interest in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah. So Frank, what are we're going to say 3 favorite, places, but I know you're somewhat new to the San Gabriel Valley, and
Sure.
maybe you'll only make it to 2.
Yeah, for sure. It's okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
just,
sure. Well, being completely forthright, I love the Monrovia area in particular. I love the clientele and the people that frequent the market in particular. I come to the Monrovia market after running a morning market, so I'm often really tired, because to prepare a market, a lot what our customers don't see is there's a lot of back end prep that goes into it. So to run one from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and get a quick lunch, drive up to the Monrovia market and run another one from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., it's physically taxing. So, I often remind myself why I'm doing it. I want to provide value to people. I enjoy the people that I get to meet. I met Russell there. I had a really fantastic conversation with him, and I think that's just really part of the special aspect of Duarte and Monrovia is meeting the people in the community, talking to them, and finding out how they are, building a company that's very personable and really knowing who your customers are, and discovering what their lives are about. And some of my more enjoyable parts of that were in those two markets.
Yeah.
So it'd be Monrovia Farmers Market, and you said the Doherty Farmers Market.
Mm-hmm.
I see. Yeah, if you haven't been to the Monrovia Farmers Market, you've got to go check it out.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a destination to go to.
And you said that is on Friday nights
That's right. From
5?
5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Throughout the summer hours. And then I believe right around September, it will go back to being 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah.
But it's a year-round
Year
event,
round,
I think. Yeah.
rain or shine. I've been there in the rain too.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. It was an experience, for sure.
And the Doherty one is tonight, actually. And
That's
so you're
right.
going to go there tonight.
That's Wednesday nights.
That's right.
How many vendors would you say are there?
In Duarte?
Yeah.
I would say probably about 20, and it's still growing. It is in the parking lot of a monastery and a hospital. I would have to pull up the exact names of them.
A monastery.
Yeah, like a I believe there's like a nun monastery there.
Wow.
And and then it's also a hospital adjacent to it.
I know that was only 2, but part of the reason why is you said, you're just diligently working 60, 80 hours a week in your company. Haven't had a chance to check many things out
For
in
sure.
the San Gabriel Valley. But despite that, we appreciate you coming in and taking the time from your schedule to share your story with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Russell. It was a pleasure to be here, Scott, as well. Yeah.
So where can people, aside from those 2 markets, how can people get in touch with you? How can they get some of your coffee?
Sure. I think the most accessible way would be online at 3hatscoffee.com. 3 is spelled out. You could also see our farmers market schedule, which is on the website as well, if you wanted to visit us in person and have a chat.
And you also have an Instagram account, don't you?
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, it's 3 Hats Coffee.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Russell. Thank you, Scott.
Well, there you go. There's another episode for you. We hope you appreciated that insight into some premium coffee, and definitely go check it out, 3hatscoffee.com, and reach out to us if you have any questions, info@sgvmasterkey.com, and you can find all the back episodes at www.sgvmasterkey.com, and we'll see you again next week.
You've been listening to the SGV Master Key Podcast. Our passion is the small businesses and the people that make up the San Gabriel Valley, and it's our honor to have them on the show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. The show is produced by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the SGV Master Key Podcast.
Mother, no, kind of mother.